In the small town of Cedar Grove, Mike Thompson ran a modest auto repair shop. Though times were tough, his business barely staying afloat, Mike found himself performing a remarkable act of kindness. When Sarah Miller, a single mother working 2 jobs to care for her sick daughter Emma, drove into his shop with a failing car, Mike chose to repair it for free. He couldn't ignore the desperation in Sarah's eyes or the faint echo of his own past in her story. What Mike didn't realize was that his generosity would set off a chain of events that would not only transform his life but also bring the entire community together. Mike's decision was rooted in a deeply personal memory. Years ago, his own family had struggled similarly. His mother had worked tirelessly to support his sister Lisa, who suffered from a serious medical condition. A kind-hearted mechanic had repaired their car free of charge, enabling Lisa to receive critical treatment. That act of compassion gave Mike and his family 2 more precious years with Lisa. Inspired by that memory, Mike couldn't turn Sarah away, even though he was behind on rent and barely making ends meet. Mike worked late into the night, pouring his time and resources into fixing Sarah's car. The next day, when Sarah came to pick it up, her gratitude was palpable. Tears welled in her eyes as she thanked Mike, and young Emma smiled brightly, clutching a lollipop Mike had given her. Watching them, Mike was reminded of his sister Lisa, and the emotions he'd buried for years surfaced once again. Word of Mike's kindness quickly spread. At the diner where Sarah worked, patrons shared the story, marveling at his selflessness. Among them was David Chin, a successful businessman who had grown up in Cedar Grove. Intrigued, David decided to visit Mike's shop. When he arrived, he asked Mike directly why he had helped Sarah. At first, Mike hesitated, but eventually, he opened up, sharing the story of his sister Lisa and the mechanic who had once helped his family. David listened intently, moved by Mike's words. He saw the sacrifices Mike had made, not just for Sarah, but for others in the community as well. What happened next would surprise everyone. David, inspired by Mike's story, took action to rally the town, using his resources and influence to support Mike's struggling business and bring hope to Cedar Grove. Mike's small act of kindness had sparked something much larger, a ripple effect of generosity that drew the community closer. In helping Sarah and Emma, Mike had unknowingly opened the door for the entire town to reconnect with the values of compassion and solidarity, proving that even the smallest good deeds can have extraordinary outcomes. Mike had no idea the depth of change his act of kindness would set in motion. As the days passed, the story of Sarah's repaired car and Mike's generosity continued to spread throughout Cedar Grove. It wasn't just whispered in the diner or shared among friends, it became a symbol of hope in a town burdened by hardship. Cedar Grove had been struggling since the factory closure left many without stable work. People were tired, defeated, and yearning for a reason to believe in something better. Sarah couldn't keep quiet about what Mike had done. To her, it wasn't just a car repair, it was a lifeline. Emma could get to her medical appointments without the constant fear of a breakdown, and Sarah could hold on to the 2 jobs that kept food on their table. She told anyone who would listen, her voice carrying the weight of gratitude and admiration. At the diner, customers listened with wide eyes and kind smiles, many remembering times when they, too, had needed a helping hand. David Chen was particularly moved. As a successful businessman, he had the means to make an impact, and hearing Sarah's story reminded him of the town he'd grown up in, the same streets, the same people who had shaped his early life. Seeing the run-down condition of Mike's shop and hearing about his overdue bills struck a chord. David wasn't just curious, he felt compelled to do something. When David asked Mike to share his story, the older man was reluctant. Mike wasn't one to seek attention or pity. But under David's patient encouragement, he spoke quietly about Lisa. He told David how his mother had worked herself to exhaustion, how Lisa's health had been fragile, and how the kindness of one mechanic, Joe, had changed their lives. "Joe didn't just fix our car," Mike said, his voice breaking slightly. "He gave us a chance to hold on to hope." David left the shop that evening deep in thought. The next day, he began making phone calls, reaching out to old friends, local businesses, and even the town's newspaper. He wanted Mike's story to be told, not for sympathy, but as an example of how small acts of kindness could create ripples that touched countless lives. Soon, Cedar Grove rallied around Mike. Local businesses donated materials to refurbish his shop. Customers he had once helped for free began paying back what they could, bringing food, supplies, and words of gratitude. A fundraiser, organized by David, drew a crowd larger than anyone had expected. People shared their own stories of how Mike had quietly supported them through tough times, whether it was fixing a car, lending tools, or simply offering a kind word when it was needed most. Even the landlord who had been hounding Mike about the rent stepped forward, offering to waive his overdue payments. "It's the least I can do," he said, shaking Mike's hand. Mike, overwhelmed by the outpouring of support, didn't know what to say. He had always believed in doing the right thing, not for recognition, but because it was the right thing. Now, the entire town was showing him that his belief in kindness wasn't misplaced. As for Sarah and Emma, their lives began to stabilize. With her car running smoothly and fewer worries weighing her down, Sarah found herself able to breathe a little easier. She started saving money, dreaming of a brighter future for her daughter. Emma, inspired by the kindness she had witnessed, began drawing pictures of people helping each other, pictures she gifted to Mike and David with shy smiles. The changes in Cedar Grove weren't limited to Mike's shop. The community as a whole began to reconnect. Neighbors who had barely spoken to each other started reaching out, lending a hand where they could. People began to believe that, even in tough times, they could make things better together. And all of it began with one mechanic, one broken car, and one act of kindness. Mike Thompson had always thought of himself as just an auto repairman. But to the people of Cedar Grove, he became much more than that. He became a symbol of the power of compassion, proof that a single spark of goodness could ignite a flame of hope.